There are unfortunately a lot of myths in education. Specifically, one I'm going to focus on today is learning styles. And by learning styles, I mean auditory, visual, kinesthetic. Teachers are always looking for the best way to reach each and every student in a meaningful way. And we know that not all students learn the same way or at the same time. And we know what works for one child doesn't work for the other. So teachers were looking for an answer to what accounts for these individual differences. The answer seemed to lie in learning styles, auditory, visual, kinesthetic. However, this is a myth. But how did teachers come to believe this? Well, experts in their fields were and still are teaching this to teachers. With tight time constraints, teachers often don't have time to access research, and we just don't have time to do the research, so we often rely on others, meaning experts. Now, by experts, I mean people who come and do professional developments in a school, in a district, in an area. It also includes university profs, people who are supposed to be or are supposedly knowledgeable in this area. This was a huge belief for a long time. So let's talk about the myths and what are the actual facts. Students learn best in their preferred learning style, visual, kinesthetic, or auditory. This is a myth. The evidence doesn't support it. Students may prefer to learn a certain way, but their learning results don't actually show this to be beneficial. So why do they prefer one way to another? It might be easier, but it doesn't actually help their memory or their understanding of material any better than other learning methods. Another myth, sensory input focusing on a student's learning style will produce best results. Again, so if a teacher is teaching a child who is supposedly a visual learner, material should be presented visually. A student who is mostly auditory, it should be presented orally, and kinesthetic, it should be mostly hands-on. Again, this is not supported by any evidence, and there is no beneficial, the results don't show any benefits when you're sticking to one method. Another one, teachers should focus on teaching each child according to their preferred learning style. And again, by doing this, we're actually limiting a child's understanding. Learning styles stick to only one way that the brain can learn, and you're not using the student's cognitive abilities to their fullest extent. So what do we know? Well, we know the brain uses all of our 5 senses, visual, auditory, smell, touch, and taste, without our conscious knowledge. That's perceptual learning. The context of our learning encompasses multiple perceptions, our mood, the smells, textures, sounds around us, what we see, things going on around us. That affects our learning, not in a bad way, in a good way. Our memories and our learning is connected to each and every one of those memories. So by varying the context in which we learn, we can actually strengthen our memories. And we know that individuals do learn differently and at different rates. So what can we do? If there's not learning styles, then what do we do? Well, we can start by varying the learning experience. Every time you alter routines, change it up, move around, teach it in a different way, all of this adds to a child's memory connections. We can match, as a learner, you can match your learning approach to the task at hand, and this goes for teachers as well. The best strategy for a task is exactly that. It's the best strategy. Doesn't matter what you believe your learning style is. For each task that you have, that's the strategies you use may definitely be different. Use multiple approaches when you're teaching or learning. Our brain connects and intertwines memories in many ways. The more connections you have to that memory, the stronger that memory and knowledge will be. When we're studying and learning, there are some tried, proven methods through many research projects that prove certain things absolutely do work. Nunlowski, Marsh, Nathan, and Willingham did a compilation. They went and they found a lot of these research projects, put them together to see what really was most effective. 2 that were incredibly effective were practice testing and distributed practice. Both of them were very effective over a broad range of subjects and areas, and they had a high rate of effectiveness. Interleave practice, elaborative interrogation, and self-explanation, those three had a moderate rate of effectiveness. Some of them were a little more narrowed. So for example, interleave practice seemed very effective for math-related problem solving, but not so much in other areas. Self-explanation and elaborative interrogation, that might take a little training for the students and might not necessarily be as effective for one age of students as it is for the other. At the same time, just because the evidence isn't there doesn't mean that they're not effective. It just they haven't had enough research done on those to show either way. Just use them when it feels that the timing is right. Doesn't mean to not use them. So, what we have ended up finding out is the learning styles is absolutely a myth, is not correct, and in fact is detrimental to students. We need to always approach all learning with a huge variation in our teaching and in our learning styles.